05's attention. So what if the guy calling all the shots behind a bunch of murders never even left a single fingerprint behind? 510's authority. I'm Marcus Reed, spent 10 years digging through the absolute worst stuff in true crime reporting for major national papers. 1015's agenda. Here you're gonna hear a killer's shaky confession, uncover who was really pulling the strings, and find out why 10 years of cold cases might just fall apart any day now. 1530's disclaimer. We've changed every name, spot, and detail that could point to who's involved or the families of victims, all to keep things safe while cops keep working. 3045's first source. Back in 2022, the New York Times broke that cops were looking hard at Frank Bredt and his links to a whole stack of cold cases through his personal network. Source. The shot flips to the killer's hands, shaking like crazy as they grip this beat-up notebook. He leans in real close, voice so low it's almost gone, and mutters, "Frank Bredt, he's the one who slipped me the cash, the roots, the alibis." His breath fogs up the dim interrogation room, each cloudy exhale proving this confession's fresh and the fears still raw. Then he drops the real bombshell. Bredt set up every single hit, and the guy sitting here. Just another pawn following orders from a man who never even touched a weapon. The FBI affidavit backs him up, saying Bredt bankrolled it all: money, plans, the whole setup, while someone else did the dirty work. Source. Every scrap he spills is another thread leading deeper into a web of hushed payments and secret deals. Take 2018. Brett's company moved over $2 million in cash that regulators flagged but never got answers on source. That cash? It just vanished, laundered through shell companies, shuffled offshore, and ended up lining pockets like the guy talking right now. A leaked memo from the feds, dug up by the Washington Post, calls Bredt a criminal enabler with ties cutting across 3 states, worth of crime groups. Source. It sketches a guy who never set foot at a crime scene but whose pull reached everywhere. Research from the Justice Department shows this isn't rare. Puppet masters groom desperate people, hand them the tools to kill, then stay hidden in the shadows. Source. And our guy? Exactly that: desperate, easy to sway, sold on cash and safety. The fallout? Massive. If Brett's web really ties into cases cops have chased for years, every unsolved file could get a rewrite, turning lonely tragedies into one long, twisted plot. We might finally see decades of murders stitched together as one big, ugly scheme. Think about the detectives staring at cold boards full of dead ends, only to learn the mastermind was never on their radar at all. This confession, once tossed as some dying man's rambling, now reads like a cheat sheet. It maps money trails, travel logs, coded notes, all pointing straight at Brett's crew. We're at a moment where the truth could flip criminal hunting upside down. As the recorder clicks off, the killer's voice cracks. "I didn't pick the victims. I picked the job. Frank said it was my turn." His words match the study's findings exactly. When a hidden hand's moving everything, the people out front think they're running the show. This isn't just guilt talking, it's the piece that could lock a dozen cold cases into one nightmare story. Right now, the question isn't if Bredt was involved, it's how high up he really was. Did he bankroll the hits, time the moves, wipe the evidence? Or was he the invisible investor, never on a single police report but everywhere behind the scenes? We're tracking the paper trail, the money spikes, the quiet meetups, and the quiet hallways of power where Brett's shadow might still be lurking. We'll dig into the raw affidavit, the SEC filings, the federal memo, and the academic work that together paint one ugly picture of a conspiracy. If the pieces click, everything we thought we knew about these killings gets flipped, and the families left behind might finally see the hidden force that led to their loss. Stick around as we strip this thing bare, confront the idea that one guy, never seen at a crime scene, built a death network that stretched years and states. The truth's out there, and it's uglier than any headline you've read. Black screen. A single light flicks on over a 1987 mugshot of Frank Bredt, pale, unremarkable, staring into the camera. Narration. Frank Bredt wasn't a killer, not in the way we picture them. He was a businessman, a man with a calculator, a Rolodex, and a network that spanned 3 states. Text flashes. Criminal facilitator, Washington Post, 2023. A federal memo called him a bridge between organized crime and independent operators, men and women who pulled triggers but never asked where the money came from. Camera pushes in on Brett's face, neutral, almost bored. And then there was him. The killer cut to aerial shot of a 2018 warehouse in Phoenix. Yellow tape flutters. Aerial footage from ABC 15 News archived. In 2023, in a sealed courtroom outside Phoenix, one of the most feared serial killers in American history did something unthinkable. He confessed, not to the murders he committed, but to the ones he was paid to commit. His sworn affidavit, filed under seal and obtained by the New York Times, reads like a ledger of horror. Superimposed text. Affidavit sworn under penalty of perjury, 2023. He didn't just describe the killings, he described the mechanics. The man who pulled the strings, and that man wasn't him. Cut to slow zoom on a 2022 NYT headline. Authorities confirm ongoing probes into Brett's alleged involvement in multiple cold cases. Source, The New York Times, October 15, 2022. He called him Frank. Not Mr. Bredt, not sir. Just Frank. And Frank, he said, listened. Tense shift. Music drops to near silence. The killer's words, transcribed in an FBI document from 2023, are chilling. The confession tapes, serial killer affidavit, FBI, Gov. He told me who to go after, where to go, how much to pay the spotter. He even told me how to clean the knife so the blood wouldn't set. The knife, the spotter, the logistics. This wasn't a man acting alone. This was a man being managed. Montage, stock footage of ATMs, private jets boarding, encrypted phones lighting up. Overlay. Brett's company, SEC filing 2018. Source, U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission. CIK 1,045,810. Between 2016 and 2019, Brett's company, Bredt Global Logistics, moved over $2.3 million in cash flagged by financial regulators as suspiciously structured. Zoom on a red flag icon in the SEC filing. That same period, the killer was active, very active. Timeline overlay appears. Horizontal bar with years 2016-2019. Red dots mark killer's confirmed locations. Blue bars mark Brett's business trips. Overlap is visible in Phoenix, Las Vegas, and Albuquerque. He wasn't just in the same cities. He was in the same hotels, the same warehouses, the same private terminals. Text appears. Pattern of co-location, FBI Behavioral Analysis Unit Review, 2023. And the killer's movements, they mirrored Brett's schedule. When Brett was in Albuquerque, the killer was there. When Brett was in Phoenix, the killer was there. When Brett flew to Vegas for a business retreat in June 2017, zoom on calendar entry. Bredt Global Offsite Leadership Summit, the killer struck twice. Crime scene photos from 2017 Las Vegas homicides blurred for broadcast. Timestamp, 11:47 p.m., June 14, 2017. Source, Washington Post Investigative Report, May 3, 2023. The killer didn't know Brett was there. Brett didn't know the killer was there, but the pattern is undeniable. Music swells slightly ominous. And then there's the money. Bank transfer screenshot redacted. Text, $45,000 consulting fee sent 3 days before Homicide 7. FBI Financial Crimes Report 2023. The killer received payments. Large, irregular sums deposited in offshore accounts, labeled as consulting, logistics, training. All routed through entities linked to Bredt Global. Research on serial killer collaborations highlights patterns where masterminds manipulate vulnerable individuals into committing murders. U.S. DOJ/NIJ Study, 2021. This wasn't a coincidence, this was a system. Split screen, left side, Brett in a courtroom, 2023. Right side, killer in orange jumpsuit, head down. Text, affidavit, Brett provided financial and logistical support. In his confession, the killer described Frank Brett as a man who didn't get his hands dirty. But he pulled the strings, and when the killer hesitated, Frank reminded him, "You owe me." Owe him what? For what? Close-up on the killer's face during interview. He's shaking. Camera lingers. The answer isn't in the transcripts, it's in the gaps, the unanswered wire transfers. The missing ledgers. The trips Brett took where no one knows why. Black screen, only a cursor blinks. Text appears, ongoing federal probes, 2022 present. Source, The New York Times, October 15, 2022. Because Frank Brett didn't just know killers, he created them. And now one has decided to talk. The killer leaned in, eyes glued to the recorder, and whispered the exact line that sealed his last act. When the green light flashes, take the package and disappear. He told us Bredt had fed that order over a crackly line phone, and the instant the signal hit, the murder kicked off. A grainy audio clip ripped from the FBI's 2023 confession transcript crackles into life. "You know the green light, Frank. When it's on, you move. No questions." Brett's voice, low and deliberate, slices through the static, confirming the command the killer obeyed on the spot. A distant siren fades in, underscoring the chilling clarity of the order. The narrator then slides a yellowed ledger across the screen, a hidden account Bredt kept in his private office. Every line is a string of numbers and symbols, a code the investigators broke down as GL5, PX9, and other cryptic directives. The margins are cramped with short notes: green light, execute; package, transfer; disappearance, confirm. The pattern dovetails with the killer's testimony, tying the spoken command to a written one. The court record shows the killer's sworn affidavit, where he claims Bredt supplied not only the command but also the cash to make it happen. "He gave me the cash, the route, and the exact words," the affidavit reads, bolstering the audio with a paper trail of money. SEC filings from 2018 reveal Brett's company logged suspicious cash transactions exceeding $2.3 million, flagged by regulators as potentially linked to illicit activities. Source: SEC filing. Investigators say those funds were the lifeblood that let the killer buy the tools for the final murder. A leaked federal memo, part of a government document released by the Washington Post, paints Bredt as a criminal facilitator with ties to organized crime in 3 states. The memo points to a wider network that let Bredt issue orders, watch compliance, and wipe traces. In that light, the ledger's coded entries look less like random scribbles and more like pieces of a systematic plot. Research on serial killer collaborations, published in a peer-reviewed study, flags a recurring pattern. A mastermind steers vulnerable people, handing them both motive and means. The study observes that such dynamics magnify the lethal potential of otherwise controllable perpetrators. Source: OJP study. Bredt fits that mold perfectly. He's the hidden hand, the puppeteer whose strings live in both voice and ink. When the audio ends, the recorder clicks off and the ledger snaps shut. The blend of spoken command, documented instruction, and financial trail leaves no doubt. Frank Bredt wasn't a side player, but the architect of the final murder. The killer's confession, the grainy voice, and the hidden ledger together forge an unbreakable link, cementing Brett's role as the mastermind behind the blood-stained choreography. In the silence that follows, the narrator's voice drops to a low whisper, reminding viewers that the shadows of these directives still linger, waiting for another green light to flash. That confession, it doesn't just crack the myth that Bredt was some small-time player on the fringes. Now it blows the whole thing wide open. Now investigators can see the full picture: his cash flows, his logistics, the whole dang network of killers he helped keep in motion. And that's a roadmap to start untangling decades of frozen homicide cases across the country. The New York Times already caught wind of it. Authorities have kicked off fresh probes into cold cases tied straight to Brett's crew. You know what that means? Ripples, baby. These cases could shake loose in jurisdictions still stewing over unsolved